living the divine life? Many of us are not, and there just might be a few things keeping us from this. Welcome to Living a Sacred Life with Dr. Raymond Anderson. In our program, you'll learn to use the tools that have been given to you to make changes that you need, and by doing so, come one step closer to living that divine life. Now, here is your host, Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson.
Namaste and blessings, beloved Seventh Wave family. Today we welcome guest teacher Dr. Sheri Rosenthal. And as we always do before the show actually starts, I would like to take a moment to center ourselves and prepare not only to hear today's teachings, but to listen to the teachings as well. So today's centering prayer comes from Dr. Rosenthal's With Forgiveness daily message, day 11. The best years of your life are the ones in which you decide your problems are your own. You don't blame them on your mother, the ecology, or the president. You realize that you control your own destiny. Those words are by Albert Ellis. It was a quote that Dr. Rosenthal used. And then she goes on to say, the truth is, there are no good or bad actions, only ones that are taken with awareness or without awareness. When we totally disempower the judge in our ego minds, we no longer feel guilt, shame, or remorse. In addition, if we are not guilty, we do not have the fear of punishment. It is the fear of punishment that has us wanting to blame our actions on others. I forgive myself for any acts that I have committed without awareness, and for disempowering myself and falling victim to my own fear-based thoughts and the fear-based thoughts and actions of others. And so it is. I would like everyone to take a breath. And today we welcome Dr. Sheri Rosenthal. Dr. Rosenthal is a life coach and spiritual travel consultant who helps folks reawaken, recreate, and redirect their lives. She is the author of 2 books, Banish Mind Spam and The Complete Idiot's Guide to Toltec Wisdom. She assists people on their inner and outer life journeys by helping them fly through life's turbulence, free from confusion, self-doubt, and anxiety. When people work with her, they get a passport to greater clarity, self-trust, and a renewed passion for life. You can contact her through Journeys of the Spirit at www.journeysofthespirit.com or email journeys@journeysofthespirit.com. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Rosenthal.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. I am so excited. And thank you for picking that particular quote and reading from the forgiveness program, one of my favorites.
Yes, ma'am. I've learned a great deal of forgiveness information from several of the days. I mean, all of them are fantastic. Some particular ones spoke directly to me. So I appreciate the fact that you've made those accessible and available. And if anyone wants to log on and get those in their email, what would they need to do?
Just go to withforgiveness.com, and it's a 52-day program, which is meant to be done over 52 weeks, really. One message for every week, and it gives exercises and affirmations, and it's free.
And excellent.
Yeah.
So I encourage everyone, whether you think you have something to forgive or not, I encourage everyone to go and do the 52 weeks of forgiveness work. So I have a question for you.
Sure.
Where does one get a passport?
Well, actually, we all have a passport, except some of us don't realize we have one, and that's where the awareness comes in. It's always great to know that you have a passport to any place you want to go in life if you believe it to be so. And that's the key. That's the key. Most of us don't believe, actually, that we have that ability. But we do.
Why do you think that is?
We do. because each of us are a reflection of the divine light. It exists within each one of us, and the divine creates all beauty and all wonder, and we have that exact same ability.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think, why in your studies and that which you've learned, why do you believe that people don't want to believe or find it difficult to believe that they have this passport?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a conflict there between I am and I am not.
Okay.
And that is the eternal the eternal issue in the mind. So either you're in your mind, which believes I am not, because the ego mind always sees itself as separate, apart, frightened, small, that people are trying to do something to it or get something from it. Or you could be living from your heart and your spirit, which is eternal, old, wise, not afraid of anything because it knows that there's nothing outside of itself. Exactly. It is everything. Never feels victimized. So when you're living your life from I am, you're living from that place of power and respect and self-love and dignity. And when you're living from the place of I am not, you're always living from doubt. Can I do this? Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Do I have enough money? Do I know enough people?
Right.
You know, they're worried about judgment and so on. So I always see it between those two places. And it's a question I'm always asking myself. Am I living from I am in this moment or I am not? Because it can change in a split second. We can go back and forth.
Right. And that's one of the things that I loved about your book, Banish Mind Spam, because the manner in which you explain and identify exactly what you just spoke about in very clear, easy to understand language. Because I find a lot of people, when you start talking about the ego and the I am, et cetera, some people, I don't know, it's almost like they check out, you know, they turn off or tune out. Mm-hmm. But the way you explained it and giving the analogy like a computer that has spam and a virus, it makes it very, very clear and easy to follow so that you can start to follow the I am versus the I am not.
Exactly. And to tell you the truth, Reverend Raymond, you know, the best way to express it is through our own personal story, you know, and I used to be a podiatrist, and I used to run a surgical residency program. In 1999, I sold my practice, and I was going through a very difficult time, and I had a lot of uncertainty in my life. I was unhappy, really unhappy, but if you looked at my life, there was nothing to be unhappy about, or so it seemed. You know, I had a good practice, I was making a good income, but I had 2 divorces, and I couldn't seem to maintain a relationship, and I don't know, I was just never happy. And then I took a leap of faith, and I decided to leave and really look at myself deeply. I couldn't figure out what the problem was, but I knew that I wanted to find out what that problem was. And when I left and I started studying with Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the 4 Agreements, I came to realize that the problem was me. That's why no matter where I went or whatever relationship I was in, I brought myself. And I brought my I am not with me.
Understood.
So, yes, and that was the source of a lot of problems in my life. And it took 8 years of working with Don Miguel to really work through all of that mind spam in my own ego mind. But I think having the medical background and that very linear and scientific way of thinking has helped me to be able to express to people in a very simple and direct way a lot of the spiritual concepts that we learn. And I like it to be able to be easy for people. And I like them to be able to get that passport to the clarity, self-trust, and renewed passion for their life, because we all deserve it.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So I have a quick question. We're approximately 4 minutes till break, but can you tell me what what led to that leap of faith that you took? I mean, to leave your practice. I mean, that's a pretty big step to, leave the comfort of good job, benefits, and the status quo to, go trekking across the world to study spirituality or to even just question yourself. Yep.
Well, you know what they say, that when you're hitting bottom, you get desperate. And even though I wasn't doing drugs or I wasn't an alcoholic, that doesn't matter. I was a relationship problem, I was just unhappy. I can't explain it. I was just unhappy and desperate. And I think that the desperateness pushed me to take some serious action. And looking back, I threw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't recommend that everyone does that, but I was that kind of person, just like that was it.
So your divine discontent, you mean you got fed up with being fed up and decided that something needed to happen.
Yep, got sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah, understood. Quick question. Chapter 7, or maybe I should wait until after break, but I'll throw this out there now. Chapter 7 of Banish Mind Spam, you mentioned something that I think ties into what you just said, and I found it to be very, very powerful personally. And I'll ask the question, then we'll take a break, and then we can come back.
Sure.
At the bottom of the page, you mentioned that if you lose the weight, you would have to admit to yourself that you hate yourself regardless of the weight. Familiar with where I'm talking about?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So we'll take a break, and then you can give some illumination on that when we come back?
Okay, I'd love to.
Okay. Thank everyone for tuning in today. Please stay tuned, and we'll be right back with Dr. Sheri Rosenthal talking about Toltec Wisdom and how to understand that you have the passport already, so it's time to fly. Thank you for listening to Living a Sacred Life, Seventh Wave Network. Be right back.
Your online community for positive change. Seventh Wave Network.
Are you seeking spiritual guidance or spiritual instruction and insight? Do you want Reiki or a holistic life coach to assist you in manifesting the life you are meant to live? If the answer to either of those questions is yes, then take this as opportunity knocking at your door. Pick up the phone or email Reverend Dr. Ray Anderson today and make those necessary changes in your life. Say goodbye to the mediocre and hello to the extraordinary life. What are you waiting for? Chat with Reverend Dr. Ray today. Call 202-607-1573 or visit www.CLSPFI.org on the web.
Our society is spiraling out of control. Are you stressed out and concerned about the events occurring around you? Is there hope? Yes, there is. Tune in to Living in the End Times, featuring your host, Monita Dukia, who will help you understand and navigate these perilous times. Living in the End Times airs live Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern Time, on Seventh Wave.
There's a course offered on Seventh Wave Network that you never saw offered in college. One that provides information on how to transform ancient wisdom teachings into everyday life. You'll learn how to create from your spirit and explore the world with all of your senses. Participation is encouraged. Enroll in Spirituality 101, the course you can't afford to miss, with your host, Reverend Norma. Class is in session every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 noon Pacific Time, in your favorite classroom. Seventh Wave Network.
Awakened media for a transforming world. Seventh Wave Network.
You are listening to Living a Sacred Life with Dr. Raymond Anderson. If you have a question or comment about today's program, please call 1-866-472-5795. Again, that's 1-866-472-5795. Or you can send an email to seventhwave@pfcls.org. Now, let's return to Living a Sacred Life.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So right before the break, I posed the question to Dr. Rosenthal, referencing Chapter 7, page 53, and I'll restate it, where it mentions, if you lose the weight, you would have to admit to yourself that you hate yourself, regardless of the weight. What exactly did you mean by that?
Okay. Well, that particular section of the book was talking about the beliefs that we have that are underneath the justifications that we make. And the justifications come from our denial. So what that was specifically referring to is a lot of times people will make a comment, that, if I lose those 5 pounds or 10 pounds or whatever, or 50 pounds, everything would be wonderful. They never lose the weight. Mm-hmm. And you wonder, why is that? Why do they always sabotage themselves? And the thing is this, if they lost the weight, they still would not be happy. So the weight acts as a sort of barrier there between what's really going on and the world. So it's sort of like that weight is like a padding around what we really feel in our ego mind, which is, I'm not good enough. Why bother losing the weight? I'm going to lose the weight, and I don't love myself.
Gotcha. So it's almost like it's a crutch, because they need to keep the weight to be able to continue to complain, to continue to avoid looking at themselves in the mirror, to understand what they have to work through to find that perfection of the I am that you mentioned before.
Right. And then in the end, it could be that you don't really need to lose the weight. The weight actually isn't the issue so much. I mean, maybe from a medical point of view, we could say, okay, weight is a problem. But when you're really happy with yourself, it doesn't really matter. But if you say, well, I have this weight and I can't put on a bathing suit and I can't go out and I can't date and I can't do this and I can't, I'm not, what it really is a lack of self-love.
Exactly, which is why I love when you mentioned in Chapter 8 the list of beliefs that we use to hurt ourselves. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have the beliefs we use against ourselves to hurt our bodies. Mm-hmm. Beliefs we hurt ourselves in our relationships, in parenting, sexually, spiritually. Mm-hmm. It offers a great deal of 20/20 vision to be able to read this list of things and say, oh, wow, that applies to me too.
Well, of course, we were all domesticated in the same time frame. We all have the same beliefs, really, except that for some people, some beliefs have more personal power devoted in them than others. But we all can read this list. To tell you the truth, most of the things came out of my own head, so that just goes to show you,
Quick question, because you mentioned domestication, and I'm not sure how many of our listeners are familiar with Don Miguel Ruiz's work or what Toltec Wisdom is. So can you explain what you mean by domestication?
Domestication basically refers to, when you're born, you're an empty slate. So your parents start putting information in your little computer head, right? Your ego mind starts to form. They help form it using language and abstract concepts. And they put more and more information in there. They put more and more concepts and beliefs. That is your domestication process. You just didn't get that information. It was put in there. So if you grew up and your parents said to you, well, you're never going to end up being anything good anyways, you're stupid, that's what they put in there. You start to believe that.
Exactly. And something that you mentioned elsewhere is that I think it's important for people to realize that it's not just what you get from family or parents. You mentioned that it's also like teachers and the media. I mean, it's pretty much everything, which is why I think it's parents who place their children in front of the television thinking that it's an innocent babysitter or whatnot don't realize that the television by default is now domesticating their child as well.
Exactly. However that information goes in there, and the messages aren't always clear.
Right.
You know, they have... How we use our word is how we create our reality. So it's very, very important. All of this information is all the word. And it's always a two-edged sword. So you have to be careful. Now, what you already have in your mind, you have in your mind. You can't take an ice pick and try to remove it, but you can have a new relationship with your mind. Decide to hear what your mind has to say and respect it, but not necessarily obey it. So you're no longer a slave to your internal dialogue. You can hear it, and you understand where it's coming from. Like everything that I hear in my head, I know where it's coming from. I know it's not truth. I know it represents a perspective. And some of it is absolutely absurd. You know, old beliefs that you can hear in your head that conflict with newer beliefs. And the thing is, there's never going to be peace on earth until there's peace in each human mind, because we're all projecting out from our mind, and that conjoined reality is the result, which is pain all over the world. So we each have the responsibility to work internally on that issue in our head.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So how do you suggest that, how do I want to phrase this? You mentioned that for you personally that you'll hear or notice or you're aware of the thoughts, and you can differentiate between what's true, what's just simply absurd versus whatever. For the average person who may not be as, I don't know, as far along on their conscious spiritual journey, what suggestions would you give someone to help them become more aware to know the difference between the more positive, affirming? Because like you said, sometimes we'll have a word or a concept and we don't even realize that it's negative or that it's doing us harm.
Exactly. The thing is this. I look at my mind like it's a bunch of people talking at the next table in the restaurant.
I like that.
Okay, I can choose to put my attention on that conversation or not. Okay. I had an interesting experience once where my mind shut down for days, and I had no internal dialogue, and I was able to function totally in my life with a quiet head. I knew exactly what I wanted, and I realized that's what children experience because they don't have internal dialogue till they're, you know, I don't know, maybe 4 years old or so they go by their heart. They know exactly what they want, just like your pet dog does. Your pet dog knows what it wants. It doesn't have concepts. It doesn't think, but it knows. So that's inherent, yes, to all of us. So once I had that experience, when my mind came back, I wasn't happy about it, but I had to accept that was my path, and for whatever reason, you know, that's what it is. So now, though, afterwards, my relationship with my mind was different. So when it says something fearful, I'm like, interesting. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, but that's not true. Thank you for sharing. I recognize that the thing talking is not me, because when it was gone, I was still me.
Right. I like that.
But
so what exactly, if you know, what sent your mind on vacation?
It was an experience on a spiritual journey, which is why I'm so devoted to spiritual journeys, and I have the Journeys of the Spirit, which is a website for spiritual journeys and retreats, it's my baby. But I was on a spiritual journey, and my heart so opened up in the hugest way. It was a very interesting experience, and something happened, and I shifted consciousness so drastically and so rapidly, and my mind just went quiet. It stayed that way for days.
Wow. That's almost like, please let me remember her name.
Eckhart Tolle has
Jill Bolt. Well, yeah, Eckhart.
Yeah.
And Jill Bolt, who
Bolte,
had, when she had,
her stroke.
Right, she had a stroke.
Yep.
So what they both speak about is the exact same thing, where the you that you are was able to step back and observe, like you mentioned the conversation at the other table. You didn't identify the conversation at the other table as you, because you know that's them, and this is me. So there was the observer who just felt and acted on the feelings and your intention.
Right.
No,
right.
that's
So for me, I'm the life force in my body, and I have preferences, and that's okay. But the mind, the mind and our body are our two tools to be in this reality, whatever this reality is. And so I look at them as my children, my mind and my body, but the spirit in me is the parent. But most of us, the parent has abdicated all the power to the children, and they've run amok. And the body and the mind are abusing each other. It happens in the most sneaky ways. It's like you're at your computer and you really have to pee, and your mind says, just finish this last thing and then you could pee. But how dare, right? How dare a mind that doesn't have the experience of physicality tell your physical body not to go to the bathroom? That's abuse.
Wow.
Do you see what I mean?
Yes, that's profound.
Freaky.
Wow. I mean, because it's something quote unquote so innocent that you may not identify that as abuse, but
it is.
It really is.
It is. So you see, that's when the children run amok, when you let your mind go and abuse your body, and sometimes the body abuses the mind. So it goes back and forth. But as the parent, the living spirit within us, we have to get a grip on our children. And why would you listen to the child all the time? But your mind is one of your children. And when you listen to it and it tells you, oh, you can't do that, you're too stupid, you're this, you're that, and you listen to that, you do yourself a disservice.
Time for a break, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, Dr. Rosenthal. Please stay tuned and come right back.
Listening on a higher dimension. Seventh Wave Network.
Goodbye, self-critical. Hello, self-thrilled. Can you define your talent in 6 words or less? Are you using your inner resource, intuition, to teach you how? Listening to Joyce Anderson of Conversations with Yourself will work your intuitive muscle to discover your divine talent. Each week, your host, Joyce Anderson, teaches practices to jumpstart your intuition as your GPS to becoming self-thrilled. From sports to business to music and food, talent is everywhere. Find yours. Joyce and her guests will share their how-to stories on being self-thrilled. Tune in to Conversations with Yourself, Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the 7th Wave Channel, and ignite your talent. Are you seeking spiritual guidance or spiritual instruction and insight? Do you want Reiki or a holistic life coach to assist you in manifesting the life you are meant to live? If the answer to either of those questions is yes, then take this as opportunity knocking at your door. Pick up the phone or email Reverend Dr. Ray Anderson today and make those necessary changes in your life. Say goodbye to the mediocre and hello to the extraordinary life. What are you waiting for? Chat with Reverend Dr. Ray today. Call 202-607-1573 or visit www.CLSPFI.org on the web.
Being here with Ariel and Shia Kane is an ordinary person's guide to modern-day enlightenment. This show is an exciting exploration which opens the door to living in the moment. Don't miss being here. Tune in every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern with Ariel and Shia Kane right here on the 7th Wave Network.
Be extraordinary. 7th Wave Network.
You are listening to Living a Sacred Life with Dr. Raymond Anderson. If you have a question or comment about today's program, please call 1-866-472-5795. Again, that's 1-866-472-5795. Or you can send an email to seventhwave@pfcls.org. Now let's return to Living a Sacred Life.
Hello and welcome back. So I'm going to take a quick moment to transition into something that Dr. Rosenthal and I were laughing about over the break. This has been something that I've noticed in my own life has at times been, part of my own struggle, which is the concept of what being a spiritual person means. And Dr. Sheri said something that was quite humorous. So if you'd like to share that, what had you said?
Well, I basically said, what isn't spiritual? We're spiritual beings. Everything we do is spiritual, including pooping in the morning. That's very spiritual. It is.
And why do you think it's so difficult for people to, just to accept the fact that since we are spiritual, how can what we do not be?
Well, because the concept, again, remember I was saying that the ego mind is made up of concepts, right? That's what was put into our head in the beginning, abstract concepts and beliefs. Spirituality is an abstract concept.
Right.
So it has a whole set of beliefs that go along with it, which vary from person to person. So what is spiritual? Does that mean that you wear white robes and live in an ashram? That isn't really any more spiritual than having children and raising them in the best way possible. That everything is, we're spiritual beings. Now, on our life path, we can be disrespectful to others, we can be disrespectful to ourselves, we can be in a place of unconditional love, we can be in a place of judgment. All the while, we're still spiritual beings.
Right.
So, what does it mean to be a spiritual person? You are one, whether you think you are or not, from the point of view that my personal experience, and I'm not saying this is a belief system, my experience of merging with that consciousness, what I came back with is that we are all one and we are all spirit, whatever that is. Because I still don't know what it is, but that's the word I'm using for that experience. Right. So if you're a mass murderer, you're still a spiritual person.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're just
not living according to spiritual principles, per se.
Well, you're living a life of unawareness of your divine self. That's
Back
it.
to that I am not place that you were talking about before.
Yes. Exactly. That's your perspective. And that's why we forgive people, because of their non-awareness.
Right. So, in Switch Books, in The Idiot's Guide to Toltec Wisdom, Chapter 9, you mention the concept of what it means to become or being a warrior. What exactly does that mean?
Well, a spiritual warrior, as we call it, first of all, isn't just unique to Toltec, which is my particular path that I enjoy, which comes from Mexico, and Don Miguel Ruiz is one of many Toltec teachers. But it's also common to Buddhism, too. They also call themselves spiritual warriors, and the idea behind it is not that there's a war external to us.
Right.
It's a war that you have for domination in your own mind. It's sort of like, who's in charge, the children or the parent? That's really the war.
Okay.
And you win the war when you, as spirit, are running your life. And that is what we call personal freedom, because a spiritual warrior is on a quest for personal freedom. We're not trying to get free from anything outside of us. We're trying to get free of being told what to do and be by what is going on in our own mind. That's where the freedom is coming from, where we're working to have that ego mind expand so much that it reflects infinite consciousness, rather than trying to coerce us into being limited and small and fearful.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So in martial arts, the samurai has the samurai sword, and ninjas have a sword and a throwing star, etc. What would you classify as the weapons per se, for lack of a better word, the weapons that a spiritual warrior uses to win the war?
Easy. Awareness.
Okay.
Awareness and awareness. Awareness is the one thing that you have that is going to change everything in every moment of your life. It's waking up and being aware. In each moment when you make a decision, because you're always making decisions, and this universe, it works by action-reaction. So we could call that instant karma, so to speak. It's that everything you do has a result. But if you could wake up in the moment and say, okay, do I really want to create this reaction if I take this action?
Okay.
To be aware, to say, do I want to open my mouth right now and say what my ego mind wants to spew right now?
So how does one... what would you suggest as the beginning steps to help someone? Because I know a lot of people tend to, but I think so much during the day, how am I supposed to be aware of all of this every day, all day long? And that, that's a bit much to attempt to do. What would you suggest to someone that they do to become more aware?
Well, what I do is, and you know that I do coaching with people, so one of the things that I teach in my intensives is how to make people aware of their emotional reactions, because that is your best alarm system that you have. And the way the human body works is it perceives, we judge and analyze, we react emotionally to what we're thinking, and then we have reactive behavior. It's a 4-step process. What we're working towards is perception without judgment, and then inspired action, which is a 2-step, process, which is what I experienced when my mind went quiet. I went down from 4 steps and draining all my personal power, getting all worked up all day on an emotional roller coaster, to being in absolute peace. So what we do in the coaching in our intensives is have people focus on their emotional feelings, because as soon as you feel yourself having some sort of fear-based emotional reaction, you can then ask yourself what is going on, because it's really not about what's happening outside, it's what's happening inside. So I feel defensive because I believe what?
Right.
Someone is trying to insult you. Someone is talking down to you. Why do you feel defensive? And then you look at that and ask yourself if it's truth. It takes a while to understand how to do that process, but it isn't hard. I mean, it becomes so automatic that you do it in every moment without even thinking. It's just making a new habit. And you become aware of what you're feeling. You're constantly checking in, going, wow, that person just tweaked me. Why?
Right.
Ooh, I know why. I feel blah, 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 because I believe whatever.
Right.
And then it becomes clear, and you can make a choice. You can say, well, I'm not ready to get over that belief yet, because I actually see that it's hard for me to see the non-truth in that belief. But for me, whatever belief is fear-based is not truth.
Gotcha. So if people took the time to become more aware of not initially what they're thinking first, but if they look at what they're feeling.
Yes.
If you're mindful of what you're feeling and you don't, if you don't like what you're feeling, then you can take the moment to step back and start to break down, why am I feeling that? Where is that coming from?
Right.
And then you can, that's where the awareness begins or grows from.
Exactly. And that's what we do in our coaching and in our intensives. We get people to become very aware, and we go through that whole practice. And people get the hang of it really fast. They're like, oh, I get it. Okay, now I see what I'm doing. I just didn't realize that before. They start to see that they're tired at the end of the day because they've been on an emotional roller coaster all day, draining their personal power, right. Emoting all day.
Right. Which that's one of the reasons why I often tell people something happens, and what we tend to do is we judge it based upon, our programming and how we were domesticated.
Yep.
But the situation is the situation. Someone steps in front of you in line at Walmart, and you perceive it as they were being rude or disrespectful, which then makes you feel anger, which then you react in another way, in that karma that you mentioned. Then you start to see how that, plays out. But if you just look and say, she stepped in front of me, it is what it is. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. Then you can become aware of, wow, that, like you said, that tweaked me. Why did that tweak me?
Right, and you can say, I have a belief that people should be polite.
Right.
Well,
and that's when you're able to start to make or reprogram that belief or where that belief came from.
Right, and it's nice to think that, except it's not truth, because, yes, it would be nice if everyone would be polite, but people do what they're going to do, and it isn't always what you want, wish, or hope for, and that's Sheri's number one rule. That's actually the truth.
Right. Right. And I think as we get ready to go to break, that if we do what you're suggesting that we do, it gives us greater clarity to realize this person may not have even realized that they did what they did. There may have been a larger space between you and the person in front, and you may have been looking at the candy rack, and they thought you were browsing for stuff, so they stepped in figuring it was an available space.
Right.
But we judged it. Okay, well, we'll be right back with Living a Sacred Life on the Seventh Wave Network. Thank you very much, and see you soon.
Listening on a higher dimension. Seventh Wave Network.
There is a lot more going on in religion and government than what high-ranking officials are telling you. The Bible uncovers the truth, prophecies, and a world of opportunities. Get the answers you need when you tune into the program To the Stars and Beyond with your hosts Michael List and Adam Hong. We'll explore the religious and spiritual beliefs from ancient history to the prophecies that are shaping the world and current events of today. To the Stars and Beyond airs live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern on Seventh Wave Network.
Yes, you can live a more positive and spiritual life. One step you can take each week is to tune in to What We're Thinking About with host Ken Ludwig. This program is designed to provide thought-provoking discussion after each week's show. Ken and his guests will challenge you to look at things in an entirely different way, to step outside the comfort zone and see the universe as it truly is. What We're Thinking About can be heard live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America 7th Wave channel.
Are you seeking spiritual guidance or spiritual instruction and insight? Do you want Reiki or a holistic life coach to assist you in manifesting the life you are meant to live? If the answer to either of those questions is yes, then take this as opportunity knocking at your door. Pick up the phone or email Reverend Dr. Ray Anderson today and make those necessary changes in your life. Say goodbye to the mediocre and hello to the extraordinary life. What are you waiting for? Chat with Reverend Dr. Ray today. Call 202-607-1573 or visit www.CLSPFI.org on the web.
The new home for visionary positive change. Seventh Wave Network.
You are listening to Living a Sacred Life with Dr. Raymond Anderson. If you have a question or comment about today's program, please call 1-866-472-5795. Again, that's 1-866-472-5795. Or you can send an email to 7thwave@pfcls.org. Now let's return to Living a Sacred Life.
during this last segment, what I would like is to extend Dr. Rosenthal the opportunity to talk about Journeys of the Spirit. You know, what exactly do you do? I mentioned the website where people can go and get more information, but, you know, talk about it. What's it about?
Thank you. Well, basically, as you said in the beginning, we help people on their inner and outer journeys. So what we do is a combination of two things. One part of it is personal coaching, personal one-on-one work, which can be done now by video, which is fantastic, or in person, because sometimes people don't actually want to go on a group trip or be in a group environment. They have things that they want to discuss privately,
right.
And I think they should have that opportunity. I think there's a time and place for a group experience and a personal experience. And there should be a balance, I believe, between the two, because you do learn a lot from group and you do learn a lot personally. So in talking about a group experience, Journeys of the Spirit was something I created back in 2003 on my own, although I had been creating spiritual journeys for Don Miguel Ruiz when I worked for him back in 2000. And as I said earlier, I believe very strongly in that experience to get people out of their normal environment, away from their computers, away from their cell phones, and get them to commit to just being with themselves and putting all their attention and focus on that and working deeply on themselves, because you could go through your whole life getting caught up in raising the kids and working and trying to make a living, and you never really learn who you are. You never discover the mystery that you are. You just get caught up in the doings. So we need to make time for being, and whether it's a personal experience or a spiritual journey, I think it's critical. We do not spend enough time on ourselves, and we don't make the investment. For some reason, there's this belief that spirituality should be free, and I think that comes from in the East, where people are at ashrams and the spiritual teachers don't. They are supported by the ashram. They live at the ashram, and people make donations. But that's not our system in the United States. We have a capitalistic system. People have to make money to live. So I think all of us who are spiritual teachers make sure that we have things available for people at all different levels. Like, for example, our With Forgiveness program at withforgiveness.com that we were talking about earlier is a free program.
Right.
And then there are free teleclasses we give at Journeys of the Spirit all the time.
Right.
But then there's also paid classes and paid trips and paid coaching. So there's all different things at all different levels. But you've got to make that investment in yourself. And I find when actually people don't make that investment, they don't really follow through. There's something about making that exchange of energy where you're actually paying for something that people start putting their attention on it. So, as I said, I do think it has to be a combination of things, but I think people do need to make an investment at whatever capability they have to make that investment in themselves.
Right, I agree.
At Journeys of the Spirit, we do all kinds of short trips to long trips. So it could be 4 days or 3 days, all the way up to several weeks. It could be volunteer trips, like Reverend David Alt is doing a trip to Cambodia in January to Angkor Wat, and he's been digging wells and building schools there. So that is a volunteer trip. And sightseeing. There's women-only trips. There are shamanistic trips. There's yoga trips. There's trance dance. There's different locations like Teotihuacan, Mexico, Sedona, Egypt, Britain, Costa Rica.
I'm seeing a theme with the spiritual travel consultant part.
Yeah. We could be all
a little bit of something for everybody, everywhere.
Exactly, at all different price points. So there's something for everybody. I work really hard at making a balance. Yes, you can go to Bhutan, and Bhutan is expensive. You know, it's over $5,000, and then there's trips that are $995. So we have a good balance, I believe. And there's something for everybody. And it's just so important for people to spend more time with themselves. And that way they get more self-awareness, they get clarity, they get a deeper understanding of who they are in the world. They start understanding why some relationships worked and why they didn't. If they're feeling stuck in situations and they don't know how to move out of life situations, we can help them with that. If they feel overwhelmed or confused, you know, the whole idea of both the trips and the personal coaching is really to clarify what's going on, to see what is going on in your own head. Because really, every problem in life is in our head, not really external to us, even though it seems that way.
Right.
And to give people the tools they need to help themselves. Because we can't, as teachers, fix other people. We can only empower them to help themselves.
Exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm.
And do you find that, in our last 4 minutes, do you find that people tend to resist that aspect of it, wanting you to fix them per se?
Yes, but I think people are very attached to their stories and often don't realize how, even though they say they want to move past something, they're holding on to it so dearly because it's familiar, like an old blanket. And even though it's painful, it's familiar.
Like that weight issue you were talking about earlier.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah. So I invite everyone to come to journeysofthespirit.com, and journeys is plural. It's Y-S, not I-E-S. So it's journeysofthespirit.com, and they can email me from the website, ask any questions. I'm happy to answer anything that people have questions with. They can call. We have an 800 number. It's 866-866-5566, so they can ring, and that information's on the website. And any way we can help. We're just about cultivating awareness so that people can be who they deserve to be, who they really are in life, and live a bold and loving life and be good people and contribute to this world in a positive way.
That's beautiful. And that's one of the reasons why I greatly appreciate the forgiveness work that you have for the 52 weeks.
Yep.
And the fact that you mentioned, because I know when people heard the numbers that you mentioned, I'm sure that because some people mention that stuff to me, you hear the numbers and you think, well, I could never do anything like that. But I noticed that, or I have found, my personal experience, if you start with the forgiveness work that you mentioned, that you have on the website, which is free, and people work through that much of their life working on letting stuff go and working on the forgiveness, they start to notice how other areas open up, creating more possibilities. And then they'll find that, wow, I'm able to actually go to Bhutan now because I did this forgiveness work, which was that it was holding me back. It was like an anchor. Now that the anchor is gone, I can actually fly.
Exactly, because it opens up abundance, and abundance isn't only money.
Right.
It's love, it's joy, it's freedom, abundance of friends, of support.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah, most definitely. What the world needs now is more of that.
Exactly.
Definitely. Well, I'd like to thank you very much. Thank you for the time that you gave to us today, the time that you shared with us, the insight that you gave. I'm sure the Seventh Way family has a lot to marinate on and take in. And I just want to say thank you, with much gratitude, love, and appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Raymond. I really enjoyed being here, and I so appreciate you inviting me. I had a lot of fun. It was great talking with you, and it's so nice to get together with like minds and share. It's wonderful.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you, and I will definitely be in touch. So be expecting an email from me.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, Seventh Way family, thank you very much for tuning in. once again, extending a heartfelt thank you and much appreciation and blessings to I'm promoting you to Dr. Sheri Rosenthal. Please make sure you go to our website. Let's journey together. Let's get that passport and fly. Thank you all for tuning in. God bless.
Thank you again for tuning in to Living a Sacred Life with Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. Please join us again next Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America 7th Wave channel. We'll see you next week.